بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم
حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير للذين أخرجوا من ديارهم بغير حق إلا أن يقولوا ربنا الله ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات ومساجد يذكر فيها اسم الله كثيرا ولينصرن الله من ينصره إن الله لقوي عزيز الذين إن مكناهم في الأرض أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر ولله عاقبة الأمور. صدق الله العلي العظيم. This is chapter 22, verses 39 to 41 that I have recited for you. And the translation is, permission to fight is given to those on whom war is made, because they are oppressed. And surely Allah is able to assist them. Those who are driven from their homes without a just cause, except that they say, our Lord is Allah. And if Allah did not repel some people by others, cloisters and churches and synagogues and mosques in which Allah's name is much remembered would have been pulled down. And surely Allah will help him who helps Allah. Surely Allah is strong, mighty. Those who, if we establish them in the land, will keep up prayer and pay the poor rate and enjoin good and forbid evil, and Allah's is the end of all affairs. The topic for this khutbah, jihad or killing Palestine, it may go into next week, because we look at the history and then the current situation in Palestine. But first I want to start by saying that the first verse of the section that I read out, permission to fight is given to those on whom war is made, because they are oppressed. Then it goes on to say, those who are driven from their homes without a just cause. And this we see happening in Palestine, particularly during Ramadan, practically every Ramadan. What is the current cause? The current cause is this, that around Masjid al-Aqsa, there is the Arab quarter, where Arabs have lived for 1300 years. But the Israel parliament has passed a law saying they should be forcibly evicted and replaced by Jews. People who've lived there for 1300 years. The Jewish claim in Palestine is that their forefathers lived there. But these people's forefathers also lived there. No compensation is going to be paid. They're simply going to be forced out of their homes. And those homes are going to be taken over by Jews. On a video on YouTube, they showed an Arab and a Jew fighting. The Arab was being expelled from his house. And the Arab was saying, you're stealing my house. You're a thief. You're stealing my house. And Jew's response was, what does it matter to you? If I don't steal it, another Jew will steal it from you. We have taken away your right to live in this place. The most amazing thing about all of this is the deafening silence from the Muslim leadership. Which country has offered to help and support these people? And you see, I find it amazing. These are the same people, non-Ahmadis, who accused Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of abolishing jihad. Well, let us assume for the sake of argument, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad did not abolish jihad, but let us assume for the sake of argument that he did. But here is an ideal situation under which you should be conducting jihad. Because the Holy Quran says permission to fight is given to those on whom war is made. War is being made on people of Palestine. Those who are driven from their homes without a just cause except that they say, our Lord is Allah. So why aren't you conducting a jihad? Israel is surrounded by Muslim majority countries who are engaged in fighting each other rather than uphold the dignity of Palestine and Masjid al-Aqsa. There are others, Muslim majority countries, who are nuclear capable. They're not saying anything. And why? Because all Muslim leadership is subservient, not to Allah, but to masters of this world. It's the same story that has been repeated for many centuries. During the First World War, General Allenby, who was in Egypt, sent Colonel Lawrence to Saudi Arabia. You remember this was one country. Turkey, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Saudi Arabia. All of that was one very large country, ruled by Turkey. So what did the so-called Lawrence of Arabia say to the Arabs? You are superior. The Prophet came to you. How come these Ajmis, these non-Arabs, how come they rule you? Why don't you rise up in revolt against them? We, the British, the Christians, we will help you. And we'll, after we win, we'll give you freedom. And this is amazing, isn't it? Muslims are always quoting the final sermon of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, which said, Arab has no superiority over non-Arab, and non-Arab has no superiority over Arab, and black has no superiority over white, and white has no superiority over black. These people never tired of circulating this sermon. And yet, what they did was in exact violation of that sermon. They said, we are Arabs, we are superiors. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to us. How dare these non-Arabs rule us? And what happened at the end of the war? To conduct the war, the British and the French wanted a loan. It was the Jewish bankers who controlled all the finance. And they said, yes, fine, we'll give you money. But you have to promise that if you win the war, after the war, you will create a Jewish homeland. This is called the Balfour Declaration. The initial agreement was secret. When Russia pulled out of the war, they informed Arabs what they could expect. And when Arabs asked the British and the French, they just laughed and they lied. Because this is what Western democracy is, what Western diplomacy is. You tell the most convenient lie to get what you want. It has nothing to do with principles. So, Turkey was defeated. And the mighty Turkish Khilafat was destroyed. And what happened? Yes, token areas were given to Arabs, but French retained control of Lebanon and so on. British took control of what was called Transjordan and Iraq and other places. And the kings that they installed there, the Arab princes, they had to rule in the name of the British. They dare not do anything against the interests of the British. And of course, this led eventually to the creation of Israel. But the reason was disunity amongst the Muslims. Rather than sort out their own problems, they went to the British and to the French. No non-MD seems to point this out to anyone, that this is how Israel was created. And isn't it interesting that the Jews expected immediately after the First World War is over for this Jewish state to be created, but it wasn't. So they started a campaign of terrorism. And Golda Meir and all the early Israeli leaders, David Goren, Menachem Begin, they were all terrorists. They headed terrorist gangs. A gang that blew up the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, killing UN observers. But Israel was created, and suddenly these terrorists, they became leaders of Israel, prime ministers. And the generation before this one, up till now, they've all been terrorists. But suddenly they became respectable. And they were welcomed in Downing Street and in White House. Suddenly no one was going to hold them to account for murders that they had created. At the time that the Jewish homeland was created, the Arab population, the Muslim population, was around 45%. And they were all driven out. And we are told they were driven out. And this is a lie that Israel perpetuates. We are told that they weren't driven out, these people left. Because Arab countries promised that in a few weeks Israel will be destroyed and they can go back to their homes. What have we seen since 1967? Have Arabs been leaving voluntarily and freely because Arab governments are promising them things? Or because the Israeli Knesset passes laws which says this area of Arabs, drive them out without compensation and hand it over to the Jews, and takes Arab land and creates Jewish settlements there. What's been happening 1967, after 1967? So why should we believe that it was any different before 1967? But sadly, Muslim defeats were caused by Muslim disunity. Jordan was fighting Syria, and Syria was fighting Iraq, and Egypt was fighting some other Arab country. And Israel was taking advantage of it. And so it has carried on. That 45%, the creation of Israel, is now 20%. But Israel is a racist state. Those 20% that actually live in Israel as it was created, the government of Israel, what you might call the central government, sets how much money different cities will get from the central government for municipal work like schools and hospitals and roads and so on. That 20% gets 1.7% of the budget for local authorities. Racism. Until recently, the Arabs living in Israel weren't allowed to vote. And the democracy-loving England and democracy-loving America said nothing, not a single word. What kind of democracy is it that disenfranchises 20% of a population? It was exactly the same as the treatment that American whites meted out to black slaves. You might say, well, this is old history, forget history. This is a favorite Western pastime. All that, this is old history, this is all gone. What happened recently? No one commented on that. Were there editorials in the Times or CNN or Fox News on the fact that Israel passed a law to say that Jews are going to be vaccinated first and free? And after that, Arabs will be vaccinated. Isn't that racism? Isn't that discrimination? And yet, no one raised their voices. Muslims are busy fighting each other. busy trying to come to an arrangement to get Americans or the British or whoever on their side. The cost of the first Iraq war was paid by Saudi Arabia. And Christian soldiers, remember, Ahmadis are not allowed in Saudi Arabia. But these armies consisting of Christians and Jews and Hindus and Sikhs, they landed in Saudi Arabia, and at Saudi expense, they attacked Kuwait and defeated Iraq. And for their entertainment, alcohol was imported into Saudi Arabia. Prostitutes were imported into Saudi Arabia. And no one, no Muslim leadership raised their voice. If this is how you're going to behave, then you'll continue to be humiliated. And you are being humiliated. And you cannot see. Any little problem, and you have to run to a Western country for help. And you feel no shame, no embarrassment, nothing in so doing. Maybe I've set out the historic background today. Maybe I might carry on next week from there, or I may not. Because in a way, there is little point. But I do ask these people who jump up and down so much that Mirza Ghulam Ahmad abrogated jihad, why aren't they conducting a jihad in Israel? Do they have an answer? Well, we have a week, so let us see. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil Azim wa nafana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikun barrafur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم. واقصر من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد اللہ رحمكم اللہ ان اللہ یأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإیتاء ذی القربى وینہی عن الفحشاء والمنکر والبغی یعظکم لعلکم تذکرون اذکروا اللہ یذکرکم وادعوہ یستجب لکم ولذکر اللہ اکبر واللہ یعلم ما تصنعون. You're supposed to stand up and line up, not fall over and line up.
I'm trying.
اللہ اکبر اشہد ان لا الہ الا اللہ اشہد ان محمد رسول اللہ حی علی الصلاۃ حی علی الفلاح قد قامت الصلاۃ قد قامت الصلاۃ. اللہ اکبر لا الہ الا اللہ. اللہ اکبر. الحمد للہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین اهدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. آمین. والعصر ان الانسان لفی خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. اللہ اکبر. سمع اللہ لمن حمدا.
ربنا لك الحمد.
اللہ اکبر. اللہ اکبر. اللہ اکبر. اللہ اکبر. الحمد للہ رب العالمین الرحمن الرحیم مالک یوم الدین ایاک نعبد و ایاک نستعین اهدنا الصراط المستقیم صراط الذین انعمت علیہم غیر المغضوب علیہم ولا الضالین. آمین. قل هو اللہ احد اللہ الصمد لم یلد ولم یولد ولم یکن له کفوا احد. اللہ اکبر. سمع اللہ لمن حمدا.
ربنا لك الحمد.
اللہ اکبر. اللہ اکبر. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, lillahi alhamd. Thank you for joining us for our Friday service. During the last 10 days of Ramadan, we suspended some of our broadcasts, but we'll be restarting them shortly, and I will let you know. But it'll be the usual time, which was 7 p.m. in Urdu. This is UK time, and 7:30 in English, Monday to Thursday, of course, Friday service, and then on Sunday at 2 p.m. In Urdu and 2:30 in English. Thank you very much. May Allah bless you. Please pray particularly for those areas where Muslims are facing difficulty, like Palestine, that Allah may protect Muslims and may grant them the wisdom to see that they need to unite if they're going to be able to confront their enemies. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, goodbye.